timing-wise, it should work.
Yeah, cool.
Do you want me to end it a little earlier if it gets to 12:30 and it's still counting down, or just stick to the timer?
Just stick to the timer.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, the 24th of July, 2020. And because it's a Friday and because it's 12:30, it means that People to People is live on Facebook and YouTube with our latest employment and job market update. Hi there, my name is Mark Smith. I'm the Group Managing Director of People to People in Australia and Frog Recruitment in New Zealand. And I'm actually wearing an orange tie today, which because I had a meeting with our Frog crew in New Zealand this morning. So if you're watching from New Zealand, good afternoon. It's a little bit later across the ditch. So thanks for joining us. I thought I would, normally I'd talk about the weather at this particular time. I think last week we had an East Coast low off the coast of Sydney here, which was just dramatic with the surf, etc. Possibly another one coming this weekend. But I thought I would show you at the beginning of this broadcast a pretty amazing and quite nostalgic picture, which is the 747 Qantas jet, which I think its name was Longreach, flew across the Pacific Ocean this week. And if you do Fly Tracker, which I've just put on the screen there, thanks, Jaden, you actually, what's the right language here? Painted out across Fly Tracker the flying kangaroo, which I thought was fabulous. So I thought I'd share that with you. You've probably seen it across social media everywhere. Thought I'd share with you again. I know I spent quite a few hours on that plane, but we won't see it in the Australian skies again anytime soon. So today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I'll give you an overview of what's happening in the market and the market conditions in this week for Australia. We'll have our regular numbers section. We've got some big news, obviously, with the deficit announcement this week. We'll join Ben Wheeler for an update on the Queensland market from our Brisbane office. We'll be also joining Marissa Verudo from our Parramatta and Western Sydney office to talk about a fabulous marketing opportunity that I think she'd like to share with you. And we have Olivia Heffer from our Sydney office, who has written a pretty exciting blog that she wants to share the details of before it's published next week. So we'll be talking about that. Finally, I'll give you some details of any upcoming events that we've got happening at People to People. And if you have any questions during the broadcast, please put it into the comments. We do see them live, and we'll be able to answer those whilst we're talking for the next 25 minutes or so. So let's get into it. Let's start with the market wrap-up for this week. So I feel like a little bit of a broken record on what the market is actually doing at the moment. So there's still a major slowing in activity. There's been a slight improvement from last week. School holidays finished in Australia this week. Different times in different states, of course, but we were expecting that there'd be a little bit more of a bounce in the market this week, but there hasn't been. So we are, I think, just bumbling along the bottom of the market, which is what I've been talking about for quite some time. So there's no discernible industry trend or any sort of improvement in any particular geographic market either. I suppose, with all of this, I was asked, and I wanted to share while I was talking about the market, there are good news stories out there, though, and there are stories of individuals who are managing to secure career positions. It's not just all decimated out there. Yesterday, I had a quick interview with the ABC. It's here in Sydney. David Taylor, I think, was the journalist, and it was on PM last night. And he also interviewed a couple of our job seekers, of which one of them was Margaret Ann, and she was finding it very difficult to secure a position. Her brother had passed away from COVID, which is absolutely diabolical. But she came and registered with People to People, and we thought her story was interesting. And when David from the ABC rang me, I thought, well, David, why don't you give her a call and have a chat to her about what her experience has been in securing or trying to secure work in this market. And she's a mature age job seeker as well, so it's even harder. Good news. Margaret secured the job that we got her an interview for at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So I wanted to share that. There is good news stories out there. You can secure a position out there, and I think we'll pop the pop the link to those the actual article that David posted online, and you can actually listen to Margaret tell her story on PM's ABC or ABC's PM. Last night. Check it out. It's well worth a listen. It may be a little bit more uplifting than some of the numbers that I'm going to show you in a second. So let's now move quickly to our numbers section. Okay, so what am I going to show you today? Well, I'm going to show you, I thought I'm normally just very Australian and New Zealand centric with this. I thought I'd start with the obvious numbers, which was the deficit announcement by the Treasurer yesterday. And how we rate internationally, and then I thought I'd share with you a couple of other international statistics. So let's start with that deficit number. So Jaden, if you wanted to pop that on screen, just to give you, and a lot of people would have seen this, I'm sure, in media over the last little while, but I wanted to share with it again just to give it some context, where you can see the GFC as a low point in terms of deficits about 10 years ago. And now we're at a level which is equivalent to World War I. So this is a dramatic event in our history. It's a dramatic event in terms of the government stimulus that they're now pumping into the marketplace, of which we're experiencing as those in the employment market, JobKeeper and JobSeeker. But how does it compare internationally? So, Jayden, if you could move quickly to the next slide, which is the global stimulus, from we can see how it fits across the different nations. The orange is not representing frog recruitment in New Zealand, if you are a Kiwi, but it actually is direct fiscal support spending. And so in Australia, that would be like JobKeeper. Loans and guarantees are everything besides central banks is in the blue. And you can see where Australia fits there. Our government stimulus as a percentage of our GDP ranks very highly globally, but some of the other nations are offering more loans and guarantees. Particularly, you can see in Europe, Italy, Germany, the UK, and France. So, yes, the Australian government is doing a lot directly in spending with JobKeeper and the like, and I thought I'd share that. But what is the rest of the world actually doing? So, and I wanted to share with you a confidence number from Europe, given the stimulus that's going on there. And the country that I managed to find a confidence number for this week is France. If you wanted to pop that up, Jayden. So you can see this is the business confidence and GDP growth in France. And you can see that there's a direct correlation between the INSEE Business Confidence Index and growth. And you can see that Business Confidence Index has rebounded significantly in the last month. So this sharp decline, which we all know about, and now very much a sharp increase in business confidence. That is quite interesting. And for those who are proponents of the V-shaped recovery, well, you'd look at that and say, well, look, this is looking okay in terms of where things are heading in Europe. What about the US? The last slide I have for you in our numbers section in this is the unemployment claims. So that there's the initial claims is the top graph. The bottom one is the continuing claims. So there's good news for the US in that continuing claims are dropping. But what I thought was interesting and why I thought I'd show this in terms of, you know, how are things going? It looks like things are back on track in the US. And if you watch the news, you'd say that's definitely not happening. Why I wanted to show this graph is the little tick at the bottom of initial unemployment claims. It started to tick up again. Is that a response to the fact that some of the states are closing down again? Is it a second wave, or is it that the economic conditions are deteriorating? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not an economist, but I thought it was very interesting to see that little tick up in the US. So that's it for the numbers section. Now let's move to our spotlight on a market, and let's talk to Ben Wheeler in People to People Brisbane office.
Hi, Mark. So Queensland market update. I'll take us back, first of all, just to April and May. Don't want to dwell too long there because it was an incredibly tough situation, I'm sure, for everyone in Australia. But really that was seen for us as the low point. Incredibly slow, job numbers declining some 60 to 70% on a year-on-year basis when doing the comparison. Encouragingly, though, for us in June, it did pick up significantly off that low base. And it looks like July is actually going to better June. So for us in Queensland, it certainly is a good news story. We're not getting too carried away with that, but we do feel like there's certainly a direction heading in a very positive sense. So compared to the likes of New South Wales and Victoria, as some comparisons, if you look at areas, in particular disciplines such as administration, I've got some stats here with the number of roles that have come off Seek. So for us, compared to last year, and this is looking at June, year-on-year basis, administration down 32%, but in New South Wales down 54%, Victoria down 58%. Looking at other areas such as accounting, Queensland in June down 35%, New South Wales 52%, Victoria very similar at 51%. Human resources, Queensland down 45%, New South Wales 62%, and Victoria 60%. So I know it's all down, which probably isn't a surprise to people, but clearly there's the two largest states that are sort of following suit, and it would appear as though Queensland's experiencing slightly different conditions to what those two states are. Why this is happening? Well, of course, we can't underestimate, particularly when we talk about Victoria, the health aspect. We're in a much better place to keep our economy moving, and unfortunately, New South Wales, of course, that to an extent extent, there is that health element as well. With our industry base, though, mining has underpinned, and resources sector in general in Queensland, our economy. Logistics, healthcare, and I'd say agriculture, actually more recently, has performed well for us. The roles in demand, and I won't go into every area, but what we're seeing most of at the moment, logistics, operations managers, that area is still very busy. In accounting, we're always on the lookout for good credit controllers. It's certainly in demand. In the sales area, good business development managers. So people are still selling product. It's still, things are still growing. It is tough, but we're feeling like we're quite lucky at the moment compared to other states that I think are struggling quite a bit. With pay reviews, I sort of just mentioned that I had a few conversations with our clients, a number of organisations that are looking at financial year reviews and figuring out what they might be seeing in the market. So it's almost two sort of areas. So of course, there are employers that are saying, well, there's loads of people, lots of candidates that have come into the market, and of course, maybe they're going to take less. And there is certainly people that unfortunately are in a difficult position that might look to take less than they were previously on. But then on the other side, the people that are employed are certainly not going to take less for a new role. And in fact, I think given the risks that might be associated with the move, it's actually quite difficult to tempt somebody out of a role. And you can't underestimate not just the economic, but the whole health aspect. I think is certainly many people are far more nervous about a move. So if you think you're going to be able to undercut staffing for, I don't think that's going to happen. So overall, I imagine salaries are probably going to remain about the same. And I think, Mark, you literally just told me before we went online that there was some numbers that just come out.
Yeah, that's right. It was in the budget forecast yesterday. So that's a wage price index that they have in there, and they were, I think, estimating it's between 1 and 1.5%. So inflation is at 2%, then real wages will go backwards. But no one is expecting a big increase in wages across the general economy. I agree with you though. I think it's very there's a lot of candidate hesitancy in the market, so they're sticky in their jobs. So the security trumps money right now.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for hard to find talent, which is often what happens when people come to companies like ours, then if you don't expect that you can go to market trying to find hard to find talent and that you don't have to pay as much, the best talent is in work. And if you wanted to coach somebody who's in a job somewhere else, and there's a lot of candidate hesitancy, then you're more likely going to have to use money to coach people in. So it's a difference between attraction and retention. So you don't have to pay big salaries to retain your staff, but if you're going to attract people in, you still may have to consider what salary that you're actually paying. So yeah, interesting times for sure.
And I think
sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I was going to say there's another point I'd mention that seems to be talking to candidates through this whole period in the last couple of months, that I think there's two things that have happened. You've either gained loyalty from your staff from the actions that you've taken, or you've had an environment where people have actually not appreciated what their employer has done. So there's really sort of those two sides, and I think there's many people probably listening thinking, right, well, yeah, I'm really happy with what my employer has done to support me if I'm obviously still working, and those that feel that the right thing hasn't been done, they're going to be the first people looking for roles for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a question here which says, so Ben, as things aren't great here in New South Wales, if I accept a job in Queensland and have to move, what's the process?
Well, that's good. That's a very fluid situation at the moment. So, from what I understand, people can move across the border, but it's a very difficult situation. We actually just placed a role overseas, and it was a very challenging position, different scenario. But because the constant, ever-changing border controls coming in place, it was one thing that you almost have to watch real time. But at the moment, I understand that can happen. So you can certainly apply to the positions, but we're just going to have to make sure that the whole time we're watching it and you can actually get here physically without a border shut down.
Yeah,
it can happen.
Yeah. I think you're spot on there. What we've noticed, well, as all of us in the industry have noticed, that the interviews are virtual, so you'll get through part of the process, but eventually you're still going to have to sit in front of somebody and or move interstate. And so we'd have to keep that in mind. So my advice to you, if you're watching this and you're considering, well, an interstate move, then yeah, you can go ahead, apply, but then make sure you let people know and let them also know that you can apply. You can be in the process virtually, but you will take action to be able to move, and you move quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Thanks, Ben. All right. Well, let's move on then. That was great. And we'll start to explore this job of the week with Marissa in our Western Sydney office. G'day,
Hello.
Marissa. How are you? How's
I'm good,
the
thank you.
weather in Western Sydney?
Western Sydney, the weather is amazing. It's cold, but it's sunny. So I wish I had a desk outside my house.
Yeah, so you can like bask in the sun. Is that right?
Yeah, tanning as much as I
Now,
can.
you've got a fabulous marketing job. Is that right? Do you want to tell us about it?
I do. So it's a very exciting opportunity. We're working with a global services business and then one of the largest in their sector. We've been working with their marketing team since the early months of 2020. So what we've been approached now to do is recruit for their marketing coordinator. And what I'll really be looking for in this person is their ability to work with InDesign, so the entire Adobe suite. Also experience in marketing, whether that be at assistant level or coordinator level, a qualification in marketing. But mostly I'm looking for someone who has a passion for graphic design. So what that will bring to the actual role is, because there's so many design elements within it, you'll be content creating, you'll be doing a lot of print marketing as well. Someone who has a flair for that, I would really appreciate, and they'd be really successful.
So would somebody have to have had experience in a role similar to this prior? What about somebody who had done a course or something like that? Or...
If they've done a course, so obviously if they have qualifications in it, that's great, because it would show that they do have an interest in it. Someone who has done graphic design in a previous role is preferable, but even if they just have an outside passion for it, that would be fine too.
Yeah, are there any specific benefits that you'd like to point out to everybody, saying, hey, you should apply for this because of this benefit?
Of course. Well, it's Western Sydney location, so fantastic.
Centre of the world, isn't it, Marissa?
No, that's fine. Western Sydney is the best. So, but there's parking on site. It is close to public transport as well if you don't drive. But I think the biggest benefit I've seen when speaking to the client is the mentorship aspect. Someone who's looking for career development and, someone who's wanting to grow their career, you'll get hands-on mentorship from the manager in this position. And I think it's fantastic, especially in this market, for someone who's looking to up the ante.
Fabulous. I can see we've put the link to apply for these jobs in the comments, so go ahead and do that. But if somebody wanted to speak to you about the role, how should they get in touch with you?
They can approach me in all the relevant channels. So my details are on the People to People website. My details are on the ad, but even connecting with me on LinkedIn as well is fine.
Yeah. What's your phone number so that everybody can call you if they want to?
My phone number is 0412 986 845.
Great, thanks. All right, no worries. Thanks, Marissa. Thanks for that. I'm conscious of time. We're at 24 minutes already. And so now let's cross to Olivia, who's got a great blog that you're going to publish next week.
Hi, Mark.
We're skipping the job hunting tip and we're moving. I suppose it's a job hunting tip in a way. Tell us about it. What have you got?
So it's all around adopting an excuse-free mindset to get through COVID. So be it if you're employed or looking for a new role, it's really about setting kind of daily goals so you can finish the day in a positive mindset, knowing that you've achieved what you set out to do. So for instance, if you're looking for a new role at the moment, you could set yourself a goal of applying for 10 jobs, add in 20 new connections on LinkedIn, and maybe write a blog on kind of your situation at the moment. So I'm going to publish that next week.
Yeah, great. Let's say that I love that idea of writing a blog or whatever, or putting your ideas out there. Where would somebody do that if they wanted? They don't have to set up their own website or anything, do they? Oh, I think Olivia has frozen now. Oh, no, you're right. Yep.
So it's all about kind of growing your network as well. You can have that as your daily goal. So if you're adding people that's in your industry and you're looking for work, then the best thing to do would then be to publish a blog around why you're looking for work and about yourself, really. So
Fabulous. Fantastic. Rightio. Well, thanks, Olivia. We're over time, so I'll have to leave it there with you. Thanks for your comments, and we'll make sure that I'll put in the link in the comments here, a way for everybody to subscribe to our blog so that you can get Olivia's post when it comes out. So I think that is it for today. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I can just see here that Ben wants to speak to me briefly again. Ben, you want to? You've got something else to share really quickly?
Yeah, I've got an interesting one. So obviously, people to people, we are predominantly a white collar business. However, looks like we just had a call come through for a role in the agriculture sector. So it's actually for 3 to 4 months, and they're looking for someone to muster cattle. Leaving tomorrow from Brisbane to go to the Northern Territory. An actual drover, yeah, on horseback, I'm told, $250 a day. Food and accommodation, of course, is covered, and it will take somewhere between 3 to 4 months. So quite an interesting one. And if anybody knows of anybody, do get in contact.
Wow.
You can call us.
Well, we don't really have time to run an ad or anything like that for that. Let's see if we can get it out there onto Facebook. But if you know somebody who wants to be who's in the agricultural sector and wants to be a drover, $250 a day, call Ben Wheeler. What's that number, Ben?
073180125.
Wow, that sounded a little bit like steak knives, didn't it, when I did that? All right, thanks, everybody. Right. Thanks, Ben, for joining us today.
Great.
Thank you, Marissa. Thanks, Marissa, for joining us today. Thank you, Olivia, also for joining us today. It's been fabulous. And thank you, everybody else who's been online. We'll see you next week at the same time, 12:30 Friday afternoon for our latest update. Thanks, everybody. See you then.